The fall of Pastor Elijah Monroe. A true crime story. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, a quiet town where trust was sacred and faith was everything. At the heart of it all stood Pastor Elijah Monroe, a man known for his passionate sermons about truth, loyalty, and the strength of marriage. People called him a guide, a mentor, even a hero. But behind the church walls, something darker was unfolding. The calm before the storm. It was a rainy Sunday morning. The church was empty, except for Pastor Monroe. He stood at the pulpit, hands gripping the edge tightly, staring into the silent room. His sermon notes sat untouched. He wasn't thinking about scripture. He was thinking about a secret. In his pocket, a phone buzzed again. More messages. Messages that could destroy everything. His marriage, his image, his entire life. A life built on lies for years. Elijah preached about honesty. But what no one knew was that he had been living a lie himself. A double life. A secret that, if exposed, would not only ruin his reputation, but break the heart of the woman who loved him most. His wife, Tamara Monroe. In less than 24 hours, Tamara would uncover everything. And within the week, someone would be dead. What would you do? If you found out your partner was living a lie, what would you do? Would you confront them right away? Or wait and gather the full truth first? Tamara had no idea what she was about to walk into, or how it would end. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a tragedy in the making. The image versus the reality to the world. Elijah and Tamara were the perfect couple. He was the wise pastor, she the loyal wife, smiling on Sundays, holding hands in public. But behind closed doors, things were different. The warning signs were there, just too well hidden for anyone to see clearly. He helped couples repair broken marriages. He gave advice about trust, all while betraying the very vows he had once taken himself. When the mask cracks, the truth would tear their world apart. What started as small suspicions turned into evidence Tamara could no longer ignore. Her decision to confront Elijah would lead to a chain of events that no one could stop. By the end of the week, one life would be over, and a community would be left reeling from a truth they never expected. Final thoughts. This case is about more than just lies or infidelity. It's about the gap between who we are and who we pretend to be, and the danger that comes when we try to live in both worlds. Elijah Monroe spent years helping others fight their demons. But in the end, it was his own darkness that destroyed everything. Cracks in the marriage. By the fall of 2015, Tamara Monroe and Pastor Elijah Monroe had been married just over 2 years. Their early excitement about building a life together in Oak Ridge had faded into routine. Their home, a pretty Victorian on Maple Street, with its neat porch and flower beds, was well known in the community. On Sundays, they looked like the perfect church couple. Elijah gave passionate sermons, and Tamara led the choir with grace. But behind closed doors, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. The first signs. It started with little things. Tamara noticed a charge on their credit card from a pharmacy in Johnson City, almost an hour away. Elijah had said he was at a church event in Nashville that day. When Tamara asked about it, he brushed it off as a billing mistake. Then came a locked drawer in his office at home. It was unusual. They used to share everything. Elijah claimed he needed privacy for confidential counseling notes. Tamara wanted to believe him, but something didn't feel right. At night, she began hearing him talk in hushed tones on the phone. The calls always ended quickly when she walked near the door. The pill bottle one rainy Tuesday in October, Tamara was cleaning their closet when she found a prescription bottle hidden in the pocket of Elijah's winter coat. The label was torn, but she could still read the name of a heart medication. Her hands trembled. Why hadn't he told her he was sick? Why hide it? That evening, she left the bottle on the kitchen counter. When Elijah came home from a church meeting, she asked calmly, "I found this. Is there something you're not telling me?" Elijah's face went pale. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sat down and quietly admitted the truth. He had been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a serious heart condition, years ago during seminary. "I didn't want anyone to know," he said. "Not the church, not even you. I thought it would change everything." Tamara was shocked. "I'm your wife. We promised to face things together. Why would you keep this from me?" Elijah looked away. It affects our future. Our chances of having children? Those words hit Tamara hard. For 2 years, she thought they were simply waiting for the right time to start a family. Now she realized Elijah had been hiding something deeper. "You let me believe we were waiting," she said, tears filling her eyes. Elijah tried to hold her hand. "I just needed time. I was hoping for a solution." But Tamara pulled away. That night, they lay in silence, miles apart, though they were inches away. Digging deeper, Tamara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, she paid closer attention. She noticed strange bank withdrawals, deposits from names Elijah didn't explain. Even the church's financial secretary, Loretta Blackburn, had casually mentioned issues with the discretionary fund, though she quickly stopped talking when she realized she might have said too much. Tamara started to wonder, if Elijah could lie about his health and their future, what else was he hiding? The discovery one cold morning in November, while Elijah was out at a minister's meeting, Tamara made a decision. She went into his office and turned on his computer. The password was familiar, their wedding date followed by her initials. It was a small detail that made what she found next hurt even more. There were emails from doctors in Johnson City confirming his condition. But there was something worse, messages from a woman named Vanessa. The tone was personal, too personal. The emails spoke of secret meetings, emotional support, and even plans for a future together. They weren't the words of a counselor and client. These were the words of two people in an intimate relationship. The messages were dated around the same time as Elijah and Tamara's second wedding anniversary. Tamara stared at the screen in disbelief. Her marriage wasn't just cracked, it was built on lies. To be continued. What Tamara had uncovered wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a betrayal of faith, of image, of everything Elijah claimed to be. And this was just the beginning. The more she searched, the darker the truth would become. Stay with us as we reveal what happened next and how this web of lies would soon lead to a tragic end. Tamara's hands shook as she printed out the emails. She placed them back in their hiding spot and left the computer exactly how she found it. That night, she didn't go home. Instead, she drove to Rebecca's place in the next town over. She couldn't bear to look Elijah in the face after what she'd just uncovered. "I don't even know who I'm married to," she told Rebecca, laying the printed emails out across the kitchen table. Rebecca, who had stood beside her at the altar, read in stunned silence. "Tam, you have to confront him, but not by yourself. This man's been living a double life. Who knows what he's capable of when the truth comes out?" Tamara stayed with Rebecca for 3 days. She didn't answer Elijah's calls or texts. He even contacted her friends, her parents, and the local hospital, pretending to be worried. But Tamara knew better. The man who betrayed her was now trying to act like the concerned husband. By the time she returned home, Tamara had made a decision. Rebecca waited in her car nearby, ready to call the police if anything went wrong. Tamara planned to confront Elijah, get the truth, and then leave, at least until she figured out what to do next. What she didn't know was that Elijah had already found the printed emails. During the time she was gone, he'd gone from worried to terrified. The lies he built his life on, his marriage, his role at church, his image, were about to fall apart. It was a foggy Thursday night when Tamara pulled into their driveway. The porch light, usually left on, was off. Inside, the house was quiet and dim. Elijah sat alone in the living room, the glow from his phone casting blue light across his face. He'd spent days rehearsing what to say, but now none of it seemed to matter. "Where have you been?" he asked as Tamara stepped inside. "I needed time to think," she replied, placing her bag near the door in case she needed to leave quickly. "We need to talk. About Vanessa." He held up one of the printed emails. "About how you snooped through my private messages?" Tamara blinked. She hadn't expected him to twist this back on her. "You're really going to talk about privacy?" she snapped. "You've been lying about your health, the church funds, and you've been having an affair." She moved to switch on the light, but Elijah stepped in front of her. "Don't, just listen. It's not what you think," he said quickly. "Vanessa's helping with treatments. Treatments I couldn't get approved through the church." "I read the emails," Tamara said, voice rising. "You said you missed the feel of her skin. You made plans with her while we were celebrating our anniversary. He stepped closer. His expression was hard to read. What are you planning to do with those emails? He asked in a low, serious tone. Tell the board? The whole congregation? They deserve to know, she said. They deserve to know who you really are. She turned toward the kitchen, needing space. He followed. You can't, he said. You'd ruin everything. I'd lose my job, my name. They'd investigate. I could end up in prison. Tamara. She reached for the light switch and turned it on. Only then did she see the panic in his eyes, the slight tremble in his hands. What did you do with the church's money? She asked, her voice cracking. It's not just the affair, is it? I didn't steal, Elijah snapped. I borrowed. For treatments. For us. Don't you dare say this was for us, Tamara said, trembling. This was all about your image. You couldn't stand to be seen as flawed. She pulled her phone from her pocket. I'm calling Philip. He needs to hear the truth from me. That's when everything unraveled. Elijah lunged toward the counter, reaching for her phone. Tamara tried to step back, but her foot caught on the edge of the kitchen rug. She stumbled and Elijah grabbed her wrist to stop her. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the tile floor. You're hurting me, she gasped. Let go. Just listen to me, he hissed, holding on tighter. We can fix this. There's no fixing this, Tamara said, tears rolling down her cheeks. I don't know who you are anymore. She tried to break free, but he grabbed her again, this time by the shoulders. As she pulled away, her head struck the corner of the granite counter. She collapsed to the floor, blood immediately seeping across the white tile beneath her head. Elijah froze. For a few seconds, he just stood there, staring at her motionless body. Then he knelt, checking for a pulse. There was nothing. Tamara Monroe was gone. The pastor's alibi. Tamara Monroe had always stood by her husband, Pastor Elijah Monroe. They led their small-town congregation side by side. He preached the gospel, and she made sure everything behind the scenes ran smoothly. To the outside world, they were a picture of faith and unity. But behind closed doors, Tamara had started asking questions. Money had been disappearing from the church's accounts. At first, she thought it was a mistake. But when she dug deeper, what she found terrified her. Large transfers, fake receipts. And worst of all, she discovered Elijah wasn't just stealing, he was also cheating, involved with one of the choir singers half his age. Tamara didn't confront him right away. She confided in her closest friend, Rebecca Collins, and made a plan. The next evening, after Elijah's Wednesday night service, Tamara would finally speak up. Stay close, Tamara told Rebecca, just in case. Rebecca parked a few blocks away from the Monroe home, waiting in her car. But the day had been long, and exhaustion got the best of her. She dozed off without meaning to. Inside the house, Tamara stood in the kitchen, heart pounding as she laid the evidence out on the counter. Bank statements, text messages, photos. I know everything, she said. Elijah didn't speak at first. He just stared at her. And then he snapped. Neighbors reported hearing a loud thud around 9:15 p.m. No one thought much of it. Maybe a dropped dish, maybe a slammed door. But inside the house, Tamara Monroe lay lifeless at the foot of the stairs. Elijah had pushed her. Instead of calling for help, he went into cleanup mode. He staged the scene to make it look like Tamara had fallen. Then he drove back to the church and walked inside just before 9:45 p.m. Security cameras captured him entering and greeting a janitor who was locking up. I forgot something in my office, he said, cool as ever. When Tamara's body was discovered the next morning, Elijah acted devastated. He told police he'd been at the church all night preparing for the youth retreat. The alibi seemed airtight, but then Rebecca came forward. At first, she was racked with guilt. I should have been there, she told detectives, but what she had seen turned out to be critical. She woke up in her car just after 9:30 p.m. and saw Elijah's truck speeding away from the house, not toward the church, but in the opposite direction. A strange detail that didn't fit his timeline. Detectives began digging deeper. Forensic teams found signs of a struggle in the kitchen that had been wiped down. Tamara's fingernails held traces of Elijah's skin. The financial records she had printed were still in her handbag, untouched. When confronted with the evidence, Elijah folded. He confessed to everything: the theft, the affair, the confrontation. But he insisted the push was an accident. The court didn't buy it. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison. Rebecca still lives in the same town. Quiet, reflective. "I wish I'd stayed awake," she often says. "Maybe she'd still be here." Closing remark. Summary. The tragic story of Tamara Monroe is a sobering reminder that danger can sometimes wear the mask of righteousness. Behind the pulpit and polished sermons, Pastor Elijah Monroe hid betrayal, greed, and eventually murder. Tamara's courage to speak the truth ultimately cost her life, but her bravery and Rebecca's eventual testimony ensured that justice was served. This case stands as a testament to the importance of listening to our instincts, speaking up in the face of wrongdoing, and never underestimating the weight of silence. Vote of thanks. We extend our heartfelt thanks to all those who helped bring this story to light. The investigators who pursued justice with diligence, the forensic teams who uncovered the truth buried beneath lies, and especially Rebecca Collins, whose testimony broke through Elijah's carefully crafted alibi. Most importantly, we honor the memory of Tamara Monroe, a woman who sought the truth and paid the ultimate price for it. Her story will not be forgotten. Disclaimer. This story is a fictionalized retelling based on true crime themes. Names, characters, and incidents have been altered or dramatized for narrative purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real-life events is purely coincidental. The intent is not to defame or harm any individual or organization, but to shed light on the consequences of betrayal, abuse of power, and the pursuit of justice.